everybody. Welcome to Secure the Seat. My name is Minda Hartz, and we're talking about my new book, Talk to Me Nice, The 7 Trust Languages for a Better Workplace. I'm so happy that you're here. Let us know where you're watching from, what state, if you feel comfortable, or maybe you'll say my couch, whatever works for you, that works for me. Uh, I know that many of you are watching us primarily on LinkedIn, but we have others who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube who are watching us live, but who will also watch us later. And so thank you for being with us all week long. We started these conversations on Monday around the trust languages, and they've been so good. And I'm super excited to end the week with transparency with my good friend, Jaye Frank. And what I love about Tara is I love to say all of her names because it sounds so good. And so I'm going to bring my friend. She's an award-winning author, speaker, consultant, and let's bring Tara to the stage.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It's
all
always
of her
good
names.
to see you.
It's good to see you too.
I love them all.
All the names.
We always have a good time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm excited. Well, for those who may not be familiar with your work, in your words, tell people a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I am founder and CEO of the Waymakers Change Group. We basically do leadership and workplace culture transformation. We have a proprietary methodology that helps companies more deeply understand kind of the employee experience and then build leadership capacity to transform that experience. But beyond that, I'm a mother of 6 young adults. Yes, you can pray for me. Yes, I will receive that. Thank you. Wife, grandmother, author, life is good. The world is on fire, but I try to just kind of preserve my gratitude and my joy every chance I get. So that's me.
I love that. And we'll make sure we drop your information. If you're watching us right here on LinkedIn, make sure you follow Tara here for more thought leadership. And I want to say congratulations. I see that you just released a book cover. Is that what I saw in my feed? Tell us just a little bit, give us a little sample of that.
Ooh, girl. Okay. Thank you for asking. So my forthcoming book, January 20th, but pre-order in November, is called You Are Before the World. And the subtitle is Lessons on Doing Good Without Being Undone. It's really just kind of my personal journey being a helper, which I am, and how I've kind of learned to preserve, again, myself, my sanity, my happiness, while making a difference in the world, right? While extending myself, while solving really meaty problems. And I think a lot of us kind of need to understand how to strike that balance right now and what it looks like to live a life in harmony. So that's what the book is about. I'm very excited about it. And yeah, the cover was just finished. So I shared it last night. I couldn't wait. It was like hot off the press. And I was like, share.
So, listen, yeah. I'm glad you did. And I mean, the book is so timely and because like you said, there's so much going on, but how do we do good and preserve? That is a word. So I'm excited. I mean, I had a taste of the book early on, but I'm so excited for the rest of the world to receive that. And so today we're talking about transparency, my friend, and that is one of the 7 trust languages in my new book. If you haven't gotten that, please do so. Buying books matters. Make sure, and Tara has a great one out too that will go well with Talk to Me Nice called The Waymakers. So get those books, get some more books on your shelves if you need them. But one of the things, Tara, I realized was the lack of transparency inside many of our workplaces, right? And for starters, I want to know what trust means to you. And then maybe you could tell us a story about when transparency either enhanced trust for you or it eroded trust, because we know that it can do both. It has the power to do both, right?
Yeah. I mean, the way I think about trust, especially in the workplace, because I'm so outcome oriented, I'm always thinking about results. Trust to me is an accelerator. Trust is a stress reliever, right? Trust is a relationship builder, which essentially means it's a collaborative tool, one of the most important collaborative tools you can have. Trust is also an opportunity um, builder. So without trust, a lot of things that we deem important in the workplace kind of fall apart, right? So yeah, that's what it means to me. It's an accelerator of all the good things. And without it, the opposite is true, right? Without it, things are slow. People feel stressed and on guard, right? And we don't get the best out of ourselves or each other. And the story, you asked me to tell a story about a time transparency. I think about transparency as it relates to just kind of unlocking opportunity for people. So we often talk about transparency through the lens of kind of the one-to-one relationship, but it also, in a trust way, connects to the employee to employer relationship, right? Like, what is the trust bridge between me and you? And without that transparency, without me understanding what you really expect from me, what success looks like, what it takes to get to the next level, right? What people are saying about me when I'm not in the room. Like, all of these things are transparency related. Without that, I can't grow. I won't get promoted. I won't get the next opportunity, right? So all of that is kind of important. And for me, the transparency through the opportunity path has been huge. I'll tell you about one quick one. I was in an innovation project, and I was an English major in school. I always used to get a little bit funny about financial discussions because I didn't really have that background or that comfort. And every time my innovation team was getting ready to talk about the financial picture for the opportunity that we were building, I would say, "Y'all know I don't do numbers. Y'all know I don't do numbers." I would kind of opt out. And that was my way of protecting myself, right? That was my way of shielding them from the knowledge that I didn't fully, freely kind of understand that. And so um, I had one of the innovation consultants pull me aside one day and be as transparent with me as anyone has ever been in a workplace. He basically said, "You know how you keep saying you need to stop doing you don't do numbers?" I said, "Yes, I know." He said, "You need to stop saying that." And I was like, I knew I was in trouble when he invited me into the conference room, but I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Every time you say you don't do numbers, you're teaching your team that you don't have the capacity to lead in this company. And for what you want to do here, you have to do numbers. So you need to go in there, be honest with them, tell them you're uncomfortable with that particular part of the work, that you want them to teach you, and apologize for basically abandoning your team." So that transparency in that moment, right, caused me to kind of go back in there and do what he recommended I do. And my very next job was a business leadership position.
And you
And it
needed those
never would have
numbers.
happened.
You
Right.
needed that. You couldn't be afraid of those numbers.
No, I couldn't be afraid of the numbers, right? And it was that's exactly what it was. It was fear.
Hmm.
But nobody, no one had ever unpacked that for me, but no one had challenged me either
Hmm.
to say, "No, you have to learn this."
Hmm.
Right? It's not okay for you to continue to hide from it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like the transparency was going in all directions, but that built the trust between me and him because he cared enough about me to be
Hmm.
transparent. He
Yeah.
cared enough about my aspirations.
Hmm.
He cared enough about my reputation. He cared enough about my work relationships to be honest with me about how my behavior was impacting, my outcomes. Like, huge.
Huge. Thank you for sharing that because transparency, I mean, that was a hard conversation for him to probably have. And he probably, every time you said it, he probably was like, this girl, if she says this one more time,
One more
right?
time.
I'm gonna have to let her know this. And we have to do that because you would have never ascended to the heights that you did without that clarity and that
Yeah.
honesty, right? Like, period. The other thing you said that really resonated with me, around this transparency. And that's why I created it as one of the trust languages, is because I don't think we do it enough with each
Yeah.
other in a way. We kind of just let people skate and do the things. And it's like, no, this is going to help somebody. Am I telling you this to hurt you or harm you? Right. And he was telling you to help you. And
Yes.
you said that trust is one of the, I wish that I could go back and say it, but it's one of the biggest collaborators, right? I forget the,
Yes.
And I feel like, we're thinking about, Teams and Zoom and all these other Chat GPT as collaborators. No, trust. You better get some trust in your collaboration toolkit, right? And I love how you said that.
When you have trusting teams, this is really important, Minda, and I love your trust languages, and I especially love this one. So I'm glad that you chose me to talk about it with you. When you have a trusting team, if there's a truth you have to tell that might be difficult to tell, you just get it out, right? You might get it out. You try to be respectful and all of that, but you're just going to get it out because you trust that the other people know you're coming from a good place. You trust that the other people understand, your worldview, your perspective. You trust they understand that you are trustworthy, right? All of these things are kind of at play. And so you can say what you have to say without hedging. When there is no trust, two things happen. One, someone spends way too long trying to frame their comment or their feedback, their perspective. They ultimately soften it potentially. It doesn't have the impact it was meant to have because I'm saying it, I'm twisting myself into a pretzel trying to figure out how to say this and not like tick you off. Or they never say it at all. And when they never say it at all, we sub-optimize our results. Like point blank period, we sub-optimize our results. So the trust enables the transparency, and the transparency enables the trust, right?
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I was thinking about the story that you told, and it made me think about when I was early in my career. I was showing up to the office thinking I was like doing it, with my outfits and coming in and everything, right? And I remember a woman who was in talent management, who she was part of my hiring process, but we got to know each other a little bit, through those organic moments in the hallways and stuff. And one day she's like, "Can I take you to lunch?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she took me to lunch, and she said, "I really I feel like you bring so much to this office. We hired you because, you're a rock star, all these things." But she said, "If you really want to see yourself in the C-suite, if you really think that's where you want to go, then I need you to rethink about some of the outfits that you're wearing." And it wasn't because they were bad or they were showing anything, but it was, she's like, "I want to tell you that the CEO at the time, she doesn't like when women wear open toe shoes. And this might feel stupid for you to hear,
Right.
but
Right.
this is how she views." She doesn't like it, right? She doesn't think it's professional. And she's like, "So I want you to think about your wardrobe when you come, and I want you to be as refined as you can, as polished as you possibly can, because part of this culture, you need to understand how this culture works, right? So you wear this outfit somewhere else, fine. But you wear it here." She has a certain idea. She was like a pantsuit woman, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain idea of what she sees in her leadership cabinet. You have the tools to move forward, but I want you to understand what the prototype looks like. You can decide if you want to adhere to that or not, but I know you want to go up the ladder, and I want you to have this intel so that you can understand. And I was so happy that she was transparent with me, right? Because that did impact. I never wore open toe shoes again, Tara, to work, because I was in meetings with this CEO. And if that was kind of their bias to whatever the situation was, I needed to know that, right? And she wasn't being mean to me or whatever about my outfit. I could have took it that way, but I took it as, I'm glad I have this information because some people aren't getting it. And she cared enough about my career early on to give me that feedback. And throughout my time at that company, she would always drop little honesty things with me around whatever it was. And I never took it as she's trying to be mean to me or whatever. I took it as, somebody cares enough about me to tell me the rules of engagement, right?
Yeah, I think this is what's so critical about this story is, one, she was very clear about the fact that she was going to share some information with you that you had every right to accept or deny. I think that's important because sometimes people come to us with feedback like that about something that really isn't germane to your, contribution necessarily. And they share it as a mandate. They share it as an indictment, right? And that just feels like irrelevant judgment. But when someone says, "Hey, this is a context clue," and you can choose to heed the context clue or ignore the context clue, that's up to you. But it might be helpful for you to have this awareness. Like, that is care. Somebody said in the comments that care and compassion kind of precedes, right, being able to give somebody honest feedback, which is why I say in my work that relationship is so important. It's an outcome of making these kinds of decisions, right? Of giving you that kind of feedback, but it's also can be a precursor to giving you that kind of feedback. So I think that's really critically important, that, like, you get the choice. The other thing I'll say is, in our research, we've learned that a lot of times people don't give Black women, for instance, right, or people who are not like them, honest feedback, what we call quality feedback. And quality feedback to us is timely, specific, right, actionable, relevant feedback. They don't give it because they don't want to be perceived as racist. Sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but that is how they feel, that if I give you this difficult feedback, you're going to think that I'm out to get you, or that I don't like you because you're this or because you're that. And what I tell leaders all the time is, that your career wouldn't be what it is if you had not gotten quality feedback along the way. And so when you deny people this, it's a dereliction of duty. When you deny people this, you're essentially stagnating them. And so it is your job, right, to give quality feedback to other people. That doesn't mean to pick them apart, but to give them quality feedback when it really, really matters. So
Yeah.
good on her and on you for receiving it, because that's part of the equation.
That's part of the equation. You know what? Let's go to that side of the equation, because sometimes when we do receive that feedback, right, we might get defensive. And I think this is very important. And I talk about this in the book, is when someone is telling you something or providing you with some clarity and some honesty, if they're saying it in good faith, right, if they're saying it to edify you and not break you down, how do you receive that? Because, I was thinking I was doing the thing, right? Coming into the office,
Yeah,
like, you can't tell me. And then
you were cute.
I thought I was cute. I was this was intentional outfit, okay?
Yes, I chose this. I chose this.
I'm like, you guys are the ones out of date. You know what I mean? And so I hear you. You want me to go to Dress Barn? That's where I need to go. Okay, great. Okay.
Check. Dress
I,
barn.
but I was in that space. I was seeking and yearning for someone to be honest with me, for many reasons, and that was just one of them, because I was the only in the workplace, right? So for someone to take the care to say, I see something in this woman, and I know that with a couple of little things, information, she can make some decisions, right? But I could have lashed out. I could have not done that. And I'll tell you, a year from that conversation, I was in rooms that I wasn't in before, right? Not just because of how I was dressed, but the dress matched the other things, right? She kept adding to my toolkit and helping me do that. And I took it as a way to help me. And oftentimes I think that, and I try that in my everyday life. I don't always get it right, right? But I try to listen, hear people out before I assume that you're just trying to break me down, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, when we are trying to be honest and provide clarity, what's a good way for people to consider, right? Let's consider what they're saying before we just be like, hold up, wait a minute, or, get out of pocket, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, I think we have to be kind of in touch with our body, because if somebody says something to us that is that we don't like hearing, whatever that might be, um, we get flushed, right? Kind of, we automatically have a thought about, this person doesn't like me, this person thinks poorly of me. This person is criticizing me. Like those thoughts pop up and then they create emotion. So we automatically feel offended, we feel hurt, we feel embarrassed, we feel all of these things. So it's important for us to recognize that when we get feedback like that, we're thinking something that is causing a feeling response. And it's never good to have an honest, kind of candid, productive conversation about our performance or how we're showing up from an emotional place. So one thing I say is if we're feeling that in our body, it's good to say, thank you. I want to think about that. Can we continue this conversation tomorrow or the end of this week or early next week? I want to give this some thought. That is critical. If we feel the heat in our own bodies, to pause and say, thank you. I want to give this some thought, right? So that's one thing to do right in the moment so that we don't just kind of lose it because we're acting out of our feelings. The other thing, when we're alone with it, right, we have to ask ourselves, is there truth in this? So that's one. Is any of this true as we're processing what we're hearing? The other thing to ask is this relevant? Because you don't have to respond to all the feedback you get. Is it true? And is it relevant? Another piece of it can I do anything about this? So when I'm training leaders to give feedback, I tell them, don't give somebody feedback on something they can't do anything about, right? If you're basically going to tell me, well, English is your second language and your accent, makes people think that you're not leadership material. What you want me to do about that?
Right.
My accent is not going to change next week. This is not, what do you want me to do about that? That doesn't mean we can't have a conversation in other directions, but so, we got to learn to kind of ask ourselves some of those key questions, but probably the most powerful thing is the pause, the pause, the pause, the pause.
Yes,
And
the power of the pause.
right. And to recognize, you kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? It's not easy to give constructive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to give quality feedback. They probably thought about that way too long, scripted some things out on a page, was practicing in the mirror. Like it's not easy for even the most experienced leaders to
Mm-hmm.
give difficult feedback, especially when there's not an established and close, trusting relationship there. But
Yeah.
without it, we falter, and we have to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that. If we don't get feedback, or if we show ourselves as someone who can't receive feedback, we're going to teach everybody in their orbit that we cannot receive feedback, which means we are guaranteed to not get it again,
Mm-hmm.
which means we're sealing our fate.
That part, because in the workplace, if I'm being transparent with you, providing you some feedback, right, and you don't know how to receive it, that's going to get out, right? That's going to be like they can't have hard conversations, they can't
That's right.
digest and marinate and process, right? They shut down, they
Yeah.
don't respond to me, all of those sorts of things. And I think I'm so glad that you talked about the power of the pause, because and this is part very important, I think, for all of us, no matter if we're at work or we're outside of work, is when someone provides us some information, if we don't have the bandwidth at the moment to answer it, just letting them know that, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the information, right? Let me process that for a bit and let me circle back and have that, right? Because I would rather somebody say that to me than hang up the phone on me, right? Or not respond to me or be passive aggressive with me, right? And what is that doing? It's creating more erosions of trust.
Yes.
It's just they're breaking apart, right? And if I
Right.
know that I can have great conversations with you, hard conversations, and you're going to respond with respect and dignity, just like I provided that to you, we can still keep trust the main character, even if we have to have the hard conversations, because we can both respect each other enough for the honesty. It's the,
Yeah,
it's the
we
honesty.
can listen. We
Right.
can listen.
Mhm.
Like sometimes, what you said, I thought was very professional. People might sometimes be like, well, they have a difficult time receiving this, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But sometimes, honestly, it becomes even more insidious. Like if I try to give you here, let's put ourselves in just human being positions.
Yeah.
I have difficult feedback to give Minda. I'm worried about giving Minda this difficult feedback. I don't want her to take it the wrong way. I don't want it to make her feel defeated. I don't want to damage our relationship. But I know if she doesn't know this, if I don't tell her this, she's going to trip over this, if not tomorrow, then a month from now.
Yeah.
And so I feel responsible for informing her about this. So this is everything I'm going through. I'm trying to be as compassionate, as respectful as I can. I tell you the whatever, you're like, well, who told you that? I mean, I'm just being dramatic.
I mean, but that's typically how a lot of people
Right.
might respond.
Right. You're like, well, who told you that? Well, I don't, that's a lie, or I don't think that's true, or nobody ever told me that before, or right, which has a story probably to itself. So I'm getting this, and I'm trying to kind of redirect, and I'm saying, well, and I'm trying to get you to see it, and you don't see it. Okay. Next time somebody asks me about you in general, or about giving you feedback, I'm not just going to say, well, I think she had a difficult time hearing it. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say she don't really want to know.
Mhm.
She doesn't want feedback.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Oh no, but you're really gonna say, Tara, she's difficult to work with.
She is difficult. She is difficult, and she doesn't want feedback. She doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And to become known as someone who isn't coachable, that's the corporate term for it.
Yeah.
To be known as someone who isn't coachable is a death knell.
Period. Period. Okay. So what we're doing, we're putting you on game here of why transparency is so important. Not just giving it, because I think we're all very good at giving it out, right? Doling it out, being transparent with people, but the reception, right? Receiving it. And even if you agree or don't agree with what they've said, take some time to consider it. I think what's lacking in the workplace, and I know we're getting close to the end of our conversation, is taking things into consideration, right?
Yes.
We're so quick to create this narrative around how you see me, why she came at me like this, why did he tell me this? And it's like, it could be that, but it doesn't have to be that. Let me assess what has been said to you. Maybe I don't agree with 90% of it, but there might be a 10% that I can give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe the last meeting that I was in made you feel this way based off of what I said. Let's figure it out, because at the end of the day, we all just want to be in a relationship with our colleagues that is harmonious, right?
Yes.
That we can get along with, that we can be good communicators. And I think that somewhere along the line, we just have thrown some of that good communication and manners out the window, right?
I know you're trying to so expertly wrap us up, but one more thing. It was so good too. And here I go throwing a grenade in the middle of it. But I always tell people, be mindful of the story you tell yourself. Mm-hmm. Whatever you think becomes a belief, again, which creates emotion, which influences your behavior and influences your result. Be careful of the story you tell yourself, because whatever you tell yourself repeatedly is going to get in your body, and you're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy eventually, right? Mm-hmm. So even if your story is true, or you feel it's true, I encourage you to ask if it's helpful. Mm-hmm. Not every true story is helpful for you to repeat to yourself every day, all day.
Listen, tag somebody in this talk, even if you just got here to hear it. Go back and listen, because we got so much goodness came down in this stream. Make sure you tag somebody. But what I do want us to kind of start to land the plane with is the responses to the transparency, right? Because I think I often talk about in Talk to Me Nice is we have decisions we can make with the people in our lives that we work with. And those decisions have impacts. They're either going to enhance the trust or erode the trust. So let's take a beat when we provide somebody with some clarity and honesty and say, again, put myself in their shoes. How would they respond? How would I respond if somebody told me this? And have that care and compassion when you're providing that. And then on the other end of the conversation, if you're receiving it, think about, if I respond right now, is what I'm going to say going to enhance the relationship or erode the relationship? And I think that's where we keep trust at center. Because you said something, Sarah, you said, Well, I never heard that before. Nobody's ever told me that. Sometimes that's that knee-jerk reaction to what someone has said. And then that's going to take the conversation in a way that that initial person had hoped it wouldn't go, right? And we have control over our emotions. We have control over our words. And I feel like I know that our manners weren't the best before COVID, but I feel like after, communication just kind of flew out the window, and we just have to get back to that. So I'm going to let you leave some parting words and some thoughts, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I will just say that transparency is a critical trust enabler. It's part of any healthy, sustainable relationship. If I don't know how you really feel, what you really think, if I don't have information I need to do my job well, right? If I have no idea about where the company stands, where the company's headed, if I don't know any of that, especially in a climate like this, I'm going to make it up. And if I make it up, you can guarantee it's going to be so much worse than any truth that might currently exist. So, from that end, transparency is actually your friend. Transparency can even sound like, we're working on some things. I can't talk about it yet, but when I can, I'll let you know. That's also transparency. That's also honesty, even if it's not the clarity you seek, right? So I would share that. And then I would also say, for those of us on the other end of it, whenever your brain starts to go to, well, they don't, well, they are, well, they won't, whenever it does that, ask yourself, what else could this be? What else could this be? That one question will be your friend, right? In these moments when your amygdala gets hijacked.
And it will. Listen, somebody's gonna get tested right
Somebody.
after this. Okay, what might be us, right? But I think that as leaders out there, one last thing I want us to both just chime in really quick. For those leaders right now who are working in environments where maybe last year we were able to lean into some topics and this year you can't, we haven't been honest and provided clarity for the people on the other end of the communication, right? Why are we telling people to return back to work with no clarity, no honesty, right? To your point, transparency isn't saying we have a 10-year lease and we need everybody back. That may not be the transparency you can provide, okay? But
Right.
what's a good middle ground to let people know that we don't just want you back because we think you're not working anymore, right? We
Right.
value you as an employee, right? The reasons
Yeah.
why are related to the bottom line here at the company. And if we can't do 5 days a week, let's try to transition back to 3, right? There's
Right.
so much that can be said in that. Tara, I have to let you chime in really quick.
Yeah, well, even acknowledging that that is an emotional and difficult and sometimes undesirable thing, right? That's transparency too. Like, yes, I can tell you transparently that this is good for the business, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But I can also say, here's where the compassion comes in. Look, I understand that this is not what you wanted to hear. I get that there are some very real advantages to working from home, right? And imagining not doing that anymore or in the same way is triggering or is upsetting, right? Or causes stress. Like, I understand that. And still, this is where we are at this point for these reasons. And it's really important. And ultimately, I know you get to choose. This is so important. Ultimately, you get to choose. We want you to be here. We value you and your contribution. For these reasons, get as specific as you can, because that's the value piece of the equation and it's connected to retention. But ultimately, we know that you get to choose. We hope you choose, right? To kind of come along with us in this transition. And look, let me tell you what, I write scripts for these things for people as part of our toolkit, because not everybody, can say the things in the way that it's in their head. It's important. Someday, Minda, will have to talk about how my first time firing people thanked me. But
That's a
it's
part
the
too.
compassion, and
Yes.
it's the clarity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the transparency. Like, all that stuff matters. People still
Yeah.
want to feel like a human being on the other side of your not great news.
And it's still possible to do that, right? And so, listen, follow Tara here on LinkedIn. Follow me if you're not following me, and get our books. Talk to Me Nice, Waymakers, and The Waymakers. And listen, I have a whole chapter on transparency. If this is something that you're good at, great. But if you're not, let's get better, right? And somebody needs a little more transparency for you. And this book will also help you provide that, because part of trust is you might work with someone who needs a little more clarity from you, right? How do you provide that? And that's something that it doesn't take $1 million initiative for us to do. We all have the tools in our toolkit right now. And yeah, just Tara, thank you for always saying yes and being someone I trust, and someone who is transparent with me when I need it in a very loving and compassionate way. And we need those people in our lives because it makes us better, right? So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. And I know everybody does. Congrats again on the Talk to Me Nice launch. And I hope everybody buys it and gets it for a friend. It's a great read and something we definitely need, especially now.
Absolutely. So listen, we'll have some clips later in the week for you all to, but go back and watch the replay, because I'm going to do that myself. So have a great rest of your week. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everybody.